hello again. Sorry, we hadn't planned who was going to talk first tonight. We both looked at each other like, don't you go first? I'm Lori Sharpsteen.
And I'm Joanne Worobec.
And we are here for this month's segment of Adulting 101.
Mm-hmm. And tonight we have Meredith McVehil, and she is going to be speaking about responsible home ownership, basically through the Dave Ramsey method, right?
Right.
Which this is really dear to my heart because when the Great Recession happened, I went through Dave Ramsey because we almost lost our house because we were living with the Joneses. So this really means something to me because I went through the plan. Later on, I actually did a coaching session as well. So I really believe the Dave Ramsey plan works, which, you know, that's why we have you here, is because we want to help our customers, our borrowers succeed and not fail. And this really helps them get to a place where they need to be.
Absolutely. And you know, we, Meredith, we first met, I don't know, probably a year and a half ago, maybe even more, to talk about you partnering and with this initiative, because I think it is so important that anyone who's considering taking on that big of a financial burden or expenditure, that they really go into it in the best possible financial position. And for many of our clients, they don't even know what that looks like or how to get there. And your program and your process is really, I think it's a very simple process that is, you know, it teaches good habits that not only help our clients during our process, but through the rest of their life to be able to set themselves up to a better financial picture.
And you said the word burden. That's what we don't want to have.
Yes,
like
exactly.
We don't want anybody to go into a home and then just be miserable.
Yes.
So the whole goal is that they can afford it, that it fits their monthly budget, that they know what they're getting themselves into, because a mortgage is not a 1 to 2 year type of thing. I mean,
it's a big commitment.
A very big commitment.
Right. And being able to, in that process, look at how do you want to live? How do you want to live in that home? Not just today and tomorrow and 3 years from now, but what do you want to do with it in the long term? Because that for many people, that's their biggest investment, right? And they need to be able to build on that and plan it appropriately. And so many, we were just saying this, right, off camera, that so many of our first-time home buyers are living life differently. And as opposed to, in my generation, we bought big houses and committed to huge expenses and then didn't have a lot of flexibility. It was kind of like we were keeping up with the Joneses and wanted to
Exactly.
And our houses owned us oftentimes, as opposed to many of our first-time home buyers now, they recognize they want to own their house and still be able to live the rest of their life.
Yeah, good way to put it. Well, and you hit on a couple of key points. First of all, you said the word burden. So debt is a burden, right? And we want a home to be a happy place. We want people to have peace when they're there and feel safe and know that they can take care of that house payment. And we can't do that if we don't incorporate living on a plan or living on a budget, which we're going to talk about. The sad statistics are that 78% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. So that means that they can't necessarily afford the homes that they're in, on top of the credit cards and the car payments and everything else, and the student loan crisis. We have a $1.7 trillion loan crisis, student loans. So on top of all of that, people wanting to buy a home is a wonderful thing. But what I love about the two of you in your heart is that you want people to get into the home at the right time. And I think that's the critical thing here, not just to get in a home and be in a hurry and get in something that you ultimately can't afford. Because there's furniture, there's utilities, there's a grass to cut, you know, there's homeowners association, there's taxes, there's all these things, right? And so we want to make sure that when we get into it, we have a plan in place, that we know that we can stay there for 5, 10, 15 years, whatever the plan is. So,
well, and so many of our clients aren't prepared for those unexpected home expenses that come up. When you're renting, you're used to just making a phone call. If you know the hot water heater's not working right, you just make a phone call. Now you do make a phone call, but you also write a big check.
Right.
So being able to set aside that emergency budget and that emergency fund, so that, because I can guarantee you, if you own a house, something will happen.
Yeah.
It's
right.
going to.
It's going to. That's right.
Right? That's just how
Not
that
only
works.
when you own a home, but statistically, I believe it's every 10 years there is a rainy day.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
You know,
Right.
and so you really actually should be preparing just for life, not just in case something happens with
Right.
your home.
And an unforeseen medical
Yeah.
expense. I've got one right now. It's just those are the things that that kind of happen.
That's
you know?
right.
That you don't unless you have a plan. It's much more stressful to go through that experience because you don't know what that's going to do to your financial life. But if you have a plan and you have a fund, it's like, okay, that's why I have
I can deal
this.
with this. Yeah.
That's what I can move on. Right?
Don't make an unfortunate situation even worse,
Right.
because you know, putting it on credit cards or getting loans
Yeah.
because you didn't have that emergency fund is only going to make the life, you know, that encounter even that much worse.
Right.
Right, and that's what the baby steps are all about. So what I'd love to do is kind of walk through the Dave Ramsey baby steps to just give our viewers some information about and kind of the system that we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have a visual here.
There it is.
Thank you.
So the 7 baby steps. So the background for the viewers that maybe don't know or aren't familiar with who Dave Ramsey is. So he went through bankruptcy. He was a young man in his 20s. He was newly married. He had 2 kids with one on the way, and he overextended himself with cars and real estate. So the bankers got a hold of him and said, "We're going to come and make all these loans due," and he didn't have the money. So he got into bankruptcy. Had to sell everything, and it was bad. So he and his wife actually went to scripture and they looked at what God's word has to say about how we are to manage our money. So not only are these baby steps scripture based, but he also studied what millionaires do, people that have money. He studied what they do and he looked at their habits. Okay, so statistically, people with money have a budget and they don't have debt. So that's what this is kind of the foundation, if you will, of these baby steps. But when you say to somebody, let's get out of debt and get on a plan, it needs to be chunked down, okay? So the very first baby step is to have $1,000 in a starter emergency fund. So that is for those very things that you were talking about. You're gonna need a new tire. The hot water heater might need a repair. The dryer might break, whatever. So $1,000 will basically cover a very basic emergency. So we start with $1,000 in a starter emergency fund. Then baby step 2 is to pay off all debt using the debt snowball. So what that looks like is it's taking all of your debt with the exception of your mortgage. So that would include medical loans, car payments, student loans, all of those things, and we put them in a debt snowball. So we take the smallest balance all the way up to the largest, and we create a plan to pay those things off. Well, how do you do that? You devise a cash flow plan or a budget, okay? So the budget, we devise what the house payment is, what the utilities are, on and on, how much we're going to pay for groceries, and how much every month that we can put towards the debt. So we can steamroll the debt and get rid of it. The average debt snowball takes anywhere from 20 to 24 months to pay off, okay?
Mine personally took 3.5 years.
It did.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. Well, way to go.
Well, just
Good job.
I didn't
Good to know. Yeah, yeah.
Good job staying with it, though,
That's
for
right.
3.5
and
years.
we're still debt free except for the house.
Excellent. Good for
So-
you. And didn't that feel great?
I mean, it's huge.
It's life changing. All of a sudden you have
life changing.
money.
You know, I donate whenever I feel like, to whomever I feel like. The weight is off my back. I don't feel stressed. You know, I really can do whatever I want whenever I want because I lived like no one else.
Yes, exactly.
When I was doing it,
Right.
I worked 2 jobs. I had little ones. It was rough.
Yeah.
It was
And
very
now
rough.
your little
But-
ones are going off to school, right?
and now they're going
off
off
to college.
to school. Yeah.
Wow.
And they saw the sacrifices we made, you know, early on to make this happen. So
And Dave does talk about that. It's kind of his thing. He'll say you've got to be willing to live like no one else, so later you can live and give like no one else. So when we're living like with payments and everything, right? We're living like everybody else. We have a
Yeah.
car payment, we have credit card bills, we have all these things. And then all of a sudden when we don't, you can live and you can give more, right? So my husband and I, for example, we had $200,000 worth of credit card debt. He had as a result of his divorce, he had 16 credit cards and a second mortgage on his house, and we paid that off in 2 years using this
That's
plan.
fantastic.
Snowballed it. It was hard, right?
Yeah.
We both were working, etc., and so we were able to pay that off. So I know the feeling, and it's amazing, and it works. So I want to just stress to everybody that this does work.
It does work.
as you well know.
Yes.
So then once all the debt is gone, right, you were talking about the fact that things are going to happen when you get into a home. So we have an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months. So what that is like 3 to 6 months of living expenses, right? So you might say you need roughly $8,000 a month to live, okay? So we decide, well, do we need 3 months of that, right, to just have in the bank? And so some people say, well, why 3 months? Why 6 months? Well, 3 months is going to be, if you know your job is more stable, your income's stable, your spouse is stable, the income situation is more stable, then we can probably go with 3 months. 6 months is more if it's irregular income, highly commissioned job, something like that. Then people tend to lean more towards 6 months. Okay. So for the people that are out there that would be doing this, for example, that maybe are renting, and then they think, well, great, I don't have any debt, and if I get 3 to 6 months of living expenses in the bank, then what about saving for a down payment for a home? That's when we talk about baby step 3B, which would be to save for that down payment for a home. So we don't get into our emergency fund to pay for to put the down payment down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is essential.
Yes.
Because something will break, something will happen.
Yes.
Right.
The emergency fund makes sure you don't fall flat.
Right. Exactly.
Well, and what people often don't realize either about credit, those people who are used to using credit cards for those kind of situations, is when you buy a house, right? You buy a house and you close on that loan, and it's a large loan. You're not going to be able to go out that next month and get a new credit card or be able to buy new furniture. And there is a
seasoning period where we still kind of keep up, make sure that things are good.
So people think, oh, well, I can go buy new furniture, and then they go in and they apply for a credit card, and they get turned down and are upset because, well, I just bought a house. Well, yes, that's why, because you just extended yourself financially that much farther. So if instead you do exactly what you're saying, is to make sure that you have those emergency funds, and then save for the house, and then also save for those things that you know you want right after
That's
the
right.
house.
Absolutely.
Before
Exactly.
you make that commitment
That's
to do
right.
it.
Yeah, and we cash flow those things. So if it's a project that needs to be done on the new home, we cash flow and we save up for the new windows, or we save up for the new flooring, or we need a new couch. We save for that. We're
Right.
not going out and extending ourselves even more. So now we're back in payments, and we on top of having a loan payment on a mortgage.
Right.
So that's baby step 3B, and then baby steps 4, 5, and 6 are often done consecutively. So that's when we look at investing 15% towards retirement. We save for the kids' college if that's something that the family feels is important. Not everybody feels that they need to fund kids' college, and with college as expensive as it is, I understand that. And then baby step 6 is to pay off your home early. And then baby step 7 is the most fantastic baby step. That's where we can build wealth and give outrageously. So that's when you really look at your income. You don't have any payments at all, and then you can go, okay, well, this percentage we're going to give and donate. This percentage we can live on and have lifestyle and travel and have fun, and this percentage we're going to invest. So baby step 7 is the very last step, and that's when people can look into investing in real estate and things like that on top of their principal mortgage or principal residence. So those are the baby steps in general, and they really do work. They do. They've worked for over.
They work for you.
They work. Yeah, they're right. They work for over
And for
60
you.
million people. Yeah, this works to get people out of debt. And when you think about it, okay, so imagine there's no credit card payments, and you have a pile of cash in the bank. That's a whole different mindset.
Right.
Yes.
Right. I'm sleeping a whole lot better.
Oh, yeah.
When I know that oh my gosh, because here's the interesting thing that I learned in my training. Women especially are wired to need for that security. God wired us that way. We need to know that we have money in the bank, not because we're gold diggers, but because
Right.
we want to have what we're just
That security.
That
Right.
security.
We need stability.
We need stability, exactly. Men, however, view money often more as like a scorecard, right? So that's not necessarily as important to them. These are broad generalizations, but what I think it's important for any of the couples that are watching is that if the spouse is, if the female especially is freaking out about the bills, or there's a lot of anxiety around it, it's because she's really craving that security and the peace of mind of knowing that we have a plan to get out of debt and have that security in the bank is wonderful.
And what's the saying? A happy wife.
Happy life. Exactly. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Well, and just having a plan and knowing, having all parties involved, right? Knowing exactly where everything's going and what that plan is, and being partners in it is what makes a critical difference, I think, too. Instead of one person kind of taking charge and doing it, the other person doesn't really always know.
That's right.
Where
I mean, that's
everything
actually a
stands.
good point, though, because in relationships, you have your yin and your yang.
Yeah.
And you do have somebody who's a little bit more of a nerd and
Yes.
somebody who's a little bit more of a free spirit.
Right.
There's still a way to coexist, though,
Oh, yeah.
where you are both on the same page. Yes, the nerd is probably going to take over just a little bit more of the budget.
The
and everything.
spreadsheets.
However,
Right.
They'll
Yeah.
do the spreadsheets.
yes, but however, you learn to communicate within,
Right.
this plan so that you both have a say. One is not overbearing the other,
Right.
but you both feel satisfied.
Yeah. That's
And
a really
utilizing a step plan like this, being able to sit down and have a neutral process that you're both looking at and both working on is a great way to address those different personalities and different behaviors, right?
That's right.
Because then it's all about the plan. It's not about, you always want to spend money and I always want to save. It's about how do we
Exactly.
work together for the plan.
That's
Exactly.
right. Yeah. And what a lot of my coaching clients realize is that every month is a little bit different budget, right? I think it's easy to think, well, we have a budget and it's going to be the same if it's in January versus May. Well, okay, May is so busy, graduations and blah, 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 right? So May might be a little bit more expensive than, say, February, right? So
Right.
every month it's very important to do this. In fact, there's an app called Every Dollar. And you can go to Ramsey Plus or you can go to Every Dollar Plus and download it. There's actually a free trial available. But so say you put your May budget in, right? Then when I get to the end of the month, it's going to say, you need to do a June budget. And it will roll that May budget over. And you literally just, plug it
Plug
in.
and
And then you
play,
have
yeah.
everything in there. And then, but, oh my gosh, we need to buy a gift this month.
Right.
We've got our budget for that. Or, oh, we've got personal property taxes due or whatever it is,
Right.
right? So anyway, but back to a cash flow plan or a budget. So I prefer a cash flow plan. I think budget kind of sounds like a straitjacket.
Yeah.
So I like to use a spending plan or a cash flow plan. And so some of the things that are just important that I wanted to highlight is a cash flow plan is permission to spend. So Lori, a lot like what you were saying, where here it is, and we're going to agree on where our money is going to go. You think about it, you wouldn't go and build a new home without a blueprint, right? Why in the world would we not have a plan for our money? It's a blueprint for your money, right? I love this analogy. So system, it's a system. Well, a system saves you stress, time, energy, and money, right? Each month is different, like we were talking about, and a cash flow plan makes your money behave. So you're actually in charge. You're telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it all went.
Yeah.
Okay. So for the viewers out there, this is a really critical thing when we are budgeting, especially if we have irregular income. Okay. So what really trips people up is, what bills do we pay? Say we're short of money or we're not sure what's coming in or whatever. We always want to take care of what we call the 4 walls. So the 4 walls are housing, utilities, food, and transportation. So this way we avoid foreclosure because we're paying the housing payment, right? Utilities, we keep the lights and the water on. Food, which we're going to get to some budgeting tips in a minute on that. And then transportation. So a car payment if there is one, and then allowing for gas and oil, that kind of thing, right? So we can get to and from work and what we need to do. So it's very important because what happens is people have a lot of bills and they might have all these credit card bills or even student loan bills, and then they pay all that, and then because the creditors are calling, and then we don't pay our housing, and then we get all upset. So not a good situation. So, okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about housing.
Our favorite topic.
Your favorite topic. So what is a common question that you run across when you're doing this line of work with people?
Well, when you start about the money part of it,
Is what are the expenses that are involved? That's a big question. What are closing costs? What are closing costs? What do we need to? What is earnest? What is all of the nitty gritty of how much money do I need?
do we qualify?
Yeah, that's the
mean,
biggest one.
Okay.
That's a lot of people are coming into it and they're like, I have this much saved. I want this much house. Do I qualify? They don't quite know the ins and outs,
right.
and a lot of times they don't know everything that goes into the fees, the down payment.
Even understanding that in your monthly mortgage payment is not what it says on the little app like in Zillow when it says this is your mortgage payment, because it doesn't include taxes and it doesn't include insurance, right? So they'll look at those apps and say, wow, that house is only $400 a month. No, it's $800 a month, or it's $1,000 a month.
Or they won't even think about homeowners association dues.
Right.
There's a number of different things that just isn't even.
Well, and I think
mortgage insurance, and if their loan to value is less than 80%, that kind of. There's so many things that they're not.
There's so many variables that they don't even know that they don't know. Really.
And I think a lot of them get kind of hung up on the what do I qualify for, right? Because because I always coach, and I know you do as well, always coach our clients. So just because you qualify for $400,000 in your monthly budget, you may only be comfortable with this much of a monthly payment, and that may be a $300,000 house. Then that's what we need to look at, not the maximum of what the lender says we're willing to give you.
Oh, I love that.
But but what is your comfort range for the way that you want to live your life?
Yeah, that's a good thing. And I love that. Again, we could lend you all this money.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean that that's the
you should
right
spend
thing
it.
for you. That's
A lot
exactly
of times
right.
I'll ask what their purchase price range is, and then I'll also ask what do they think will fit in their monthly budget, just to see if they'll align.
Okay.
Because again, sometimes expectations are a little out of place, and so I just want to make sure that their
expectations are in the right place.
Yeah.
And it's really important for me as the agent when we're looking at properties and I'm showing them properties to because property taxes vary greatly.
Yeah.
So, I can essentially take whatever a property's last year's taxes were, divide by 12, and that's how it's going to impact your mortgage payment. And I literally
Not this
highlight
year.
that and do it.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yeah.
This year they did, a lot of the property values have gone up 20%.
Yes, they have. It's crazy.
So
But being able to say, when they're selecting a home, and say, okay, this home, your monthly expense for property taxes are going to be $150. For this home, your monthly expense for property taxes are going to be $300. So same house, same square footage, so as they're making their decision, which is going to be better for them? Because let's face it, you can get value back out of your house. You're not are you getting money back from your taxes, your property taxes? No,
No, right.
That's not adding to your paying taxes doesn't add to your portfolio.
Right.
A home does.
there might be a perceived value if the amenities
Right.
are good.
Right.
That's the only thing I want to kind of put in there.
Yeah,
Okay.
so just
Yeah, that's
having,
true.
and we've talked about that before too, having zero property taxes is not a good thing. That means nobody's taking care of your roads, you don't have any police showing up, you don't have fire or EMT or all those things that your taxes pay for. But so you have to balance all of that in your plan for the future. And when do you want to sell this property? What do you want it to look like? Your taxes pay for your school district. How important is that to you?
Right.
And we literally, I have those conversations when I print out my sheet for them. I highlight, this is the taxes, and then factor it back so that this is how it's going to impact your payment.
Very good.
Because otherwise, it could be a huge surprise. There could be two houses that are both $300,000, and they could be off by $300 or $400 in monthly payment.
Wow. Well, and one of the budgeting guidelines that we use within the budgeting or the cash flow plan is to figure 35% total for housing. So what that would include is the mortgage payment would be no more than 25% of income. Okay, because to your point, we need to think about HOA dues, we need to think about taxes, and of course there's insurance, which is in another section of the budget. So total housing we want to look at is 35%. And again, also that would include home repairs, right? So you can have a really low mortgage and be able to include the payment. But if you have a home where there's just like all these needs to remodel, or the basement or whatever floods, or there's all these issues, it can get a lot more costly. So we want to make sure it's within 35% total from a budgeting standpoint.
Or if you select homeowners insurance with a high deductible.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
That has a huge impact too. So you may be saving on your monthly payment by a lower premium, but then when something happens, do you have $10,000 for a roof?
If you have an emergency fund, you do.
Exactly. Exactly. So
But
one thing I coach my clients is, if you're still in baby step, one, right, or even out of debt, and then we're at 3 to 6 months emergency, you go to the higher deductible when you have that fully funded emergency fund.
Yes.
So we keep the house insurance low until we know that we can afford it. So that's a really good point for sure. So yeah. So the loan payment also less than 25%, and then we really recommend a 15-year loan versus a 30. And I know everybody's situation is a little bit different, but again, the whole idea is less debt over time. So we want to make what I coach people to do is, if they're in a 30-year, refi to a 15-year. And then maybe, for those first-time home buyers, do the 15-year, because they'll be so glad they did. They did.
Yeah,
right.
Because in 15 years they'll be gone.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So anyway, okay. So a little bit about food. So the food guide here, which hopefully the viewers can see. This is, what'd you say?
One of my favorite topics.
Oh yes,
food.
yes, food. So this is a really kind of slippery slope, because a lot of us don't know how to budget for food. I didn't before, right? So a couple tips. First of all, we want food to be anywhere from 10 to 15% of total income that's coming in. Okay, so again, if you have an irregular income, you need to budget your food based on what you know is coming in.
Now, is that net or gross?
Very good question. It would be net. Okay, so this food guide is helpful because it breaks down, you can have a thrifty plan, a low cost plan, a moderate plan, or a liberal plan, depending on how you like to eat. Like, I have clients and they eat a lot of vegetables. Produce is expensive, right? It's so expensive to eat healthy, right? So you can have a more liberal plan. And this breaks it down by like number of people that are in the home and that kind of thing. So it becomes a really helpful guide. But this again is just for groceries. Where a lot of families often overspend is we are in such a takeout culture, right? Whether it be, I call it $5 coffee because I think it's a ripoff, but that's me. Or Chick-fil-A or Panera, or we all love those places, right? But it is so easy to just drive through and all of a sudden you spent $25 and it adds up. So one of the things that I love to coach people to do is if we're wanting to get out of debt and we need to trim our costs, we just put cash in an envelope. So cash is truly king. And this is what's so interesting. They have done study after study, and people will spend anywhere from 18 to 30% less if you're handling cash. Why do you think that is?
There's an actual response that your body has. I know this. I know this answer.
I know you do. I love it. Ding, 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 ding.
There's an actual response that your body has. It is literally a pain.
Yes.
To
give that
money.
That's
you
exactly
feel
right.
it.
Instead of just tapping your card or your phone or all of the different
And there
ways
is
that
a
we do it now.
tiered body response as to what form of payment you give.
That's
So
right.
cash is the worst. You're like, they have to pull it out of your hands.
Right.
A debit card is it's still a little bit of pain there, but not quite as much. Credit card, and then swiping, nothing.
You don't feel it.
You don't
No.
feel it at all.
Feel it,
No.
right?
And
So
nobody writes out a check anymore.
No.
True.
So that's why it's so easy, right? To just go to the store and then we spend. And then I remember when I was paying off the debt, it's like, okay, wait, I need to go to the store and grocery shop for my family, which is a necessity. And yet, did I just pay, should I be paying more on the debt? Like, there's this whole kind of mental gymnastics. But again, when you have a budget and you go, okay, we have 5 people in our home, it's $1,000 a month for food. Then when we're paying off the bills, it's okay, right? Because again, food is one of the 4 walls. So using cash, if anybody, I just love this tip. Get an envelope, put it in your wallet, and just use it. It's just great. It really works. And especially also for restaurants. It's another thing, and it's just so that's food. So this food guide is from February. There's probably a more recent one, but when I researched it for this presentation,
February 2021 is pretty recent.
it's pretty recent, and groceries have gone up. So
like everything.
Everything, yeah. The average cost on increase on food is about 4%. So again, we need to allow for that. We need to allow for the gas increase and the food increase. So yeah. So
And
that's
just the way that we've all, let's face it, over the course of the last year, we have all lived differently.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
That's what the pandemic has sort of forced on us, is really looking at. So some people are ordering in more.
Yeah.
You know, some are door dashing a lot
adds up.
more. Right. And others are cooking more, and others are growing food more. I mean, it's just
However, now that the CDC is starting to relax their mask guidelines, we are already starting to see more people out and about
Yes.
and going back to work more often, and we're probably going to see more sports open up and everything like that. We're starting to get back to what it was pre-pandemic, and we had busy lives pre-pandemic, right? So if you're doing the Dave Ramsey steps and you've got this busy life going on, it's really easy to get off track and say, oh, I don't have time to make dinner tonight.
Right.
I need to get
slide
McDonald's.
back into that.
Right? And so
Very good point.
we need to make sure that we stay true to the budget and just be proactive then. Like if we know we're gonna have a busy night, maybe have some meals packed up, or make sure we're going with the cheapest option that we've already budgeted. There will be a takeout tonight.
Absolutely. And that's a good point, because that total percentage of 10 to 15% of food, again, is groceries and restaurants. So what a lot of my customers or clients will do is they'll just say, okay, there's going to be X amount, and we're going to put it all in an envelope, and we'll use it when we're grocery shopping, and we'll also use it when we eat out. It's like one envelope, and then it's just called food, right? And then if I do go grab that gourmet coffee, I have it in there. It all comes out of that one place, which I think is really important. Another thing that I wanted to mention is that all of the things that we're talking about here, the baby steps, cash, all these things, this is 80% behavior and 20% knowledge. This is not, this is kind of grandma's common sense.
Right.
Don't spend money unless you have it, right? I know I met a lady the other day, an elderly lady, and she goes, I've had envelopes all my life. I don't know who Dave Ramsey is, but I've had envelopes all my life, right? She owns her home.
Right.
She owns her car. I mean, this is just common sense, but I think it's so easy, again, in our culture, we like to say it's really easy to wander into debt, but it's very difficult to wander. You can't wander out, right? So you need to have a plan and get yourself out of debt once and for all. So to your point, now we're back into gear and we can go out and be busy again, but how is our behavior going to align with where we want to go?
Exactly.
If we really want to be in a home, then let's continue to stick on the budget, pay off the loans, do all those kinds of things. So, yeah. So a question is, okay, so hypothetically, I don't have any debt, and I have a fully funded emergency fund. I want to save and buy a new home. I want to call Lori. I want to call Joanne. I want to get my beautiful new home, right? So here are some saving strategies. I would really recommend for anybody to have a written plan, which is the budget or the cash flow plan. Have an accountability partner. So some people have a best friend that they say, hey, this is my goal. This is really what I want to do. That's why some folks hire me. They're single and they know that I have a young lady and she's getting herself out of student loan debt because she wants to buy a home. So she uses me as her accountability partner. And we pay off all debt first, using the smallest debts to the largest. We cut up all credit cards, right? So cut them up. Don't use them. Because they're not.
I see that on your Facebook posts all the time.
Yes.
A pile of cut up credit cards.
Yes, it's so cool.
It's such a celebration.
It's such a celebration. Yeah, to date we've crushed over $1 million worth of debt in just over a year. Yeah,
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. Just people getting intentional and wanting to get it behind them because they're so burdened by it. So, yeah. And then what I recommend is, so when we're saving, we want to have kind of a separate bucket for those savings, right? So we have an everyday account where we pay our bills, and then I like to call it our sinking fund. You're familiar with this from teaching the class. So the sinking fund is just where we put we save for those irregular expenses, like a vet bill, right? Or personal property tax if people don't escrow. Or if you pay your car insurance every 6 months and you got to put the money aside. So the sinking fund is just for those irregular expenses. It's also a nice kind of holding tank for the down payment for the home. Okay, so we're not going to put it away as an investment, because if we're saving for a home and it might only take a year or two, we need to have access to it, right? So it just needs to be in a savings account.
And you don't want the volatility that can come with the market as well.
Good point. Absolutely. Yeah. So those are just some kind of
stable place.
Right. That's right. So the sinking fund is great. It also for the down payment for house repairs, or again for irregular expenses. And so this has been a game changer for a lot of clients, because you have this pile of money in your bank and you think, oh well, I can pay this bill, and then all of a sudden you need a new vacuum cleaner, and well, we didn't save for that. And so it's just kind of those irregular things that you have a holding tank for. So yeah. So this is my just a favorite quote. So we talked, because I just think that a cash flow plan and these baby steps are all a system, right? So a wonderful book that I'm sure you're both familiar with is Atomic Habits, and he says you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems.
Oh,
so when we have a system for our money, we can call you and buy a house, but do it with peace. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Know that we can
Good way
afford
to say it.
Yeah. Absolutely. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really one other really important message that I want to make sure that people hear from this is, you know, a lot of talking about the steps and talking about where you need to get to. When you look at it all packaged, it can feel very overwhelming,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So I feel like a lot of people would look at that and say, oh my God, I'm either not going to be able to do it, or I'm not going to talk to Lori and Joanne now because I have to do all this other crazy stuff first.
Exactly.
And I don't know if I can do it. So my advice is always the right time to start is when you think, is it the right time to start? Because starting doesn't mean we're going to go run around and look at properties and write you an offer, right?
No.
Starting just means getting the information, talking to the lender, finding out where are you right now compared to where it is that you want to and need to be. And then one of the things that I love about working with Joanne is that she's in it for the long haul. So if you can buy now, great. If you can buy in 2 years, great. And she's going to help you get from here to there utilizing tools like this. So don't feel like, oh my God, I have all these things I just wrote down and I've got to go look up Dave Ramsey and I've got to go find the charts and I have to figure this out. Reach out and start the process utilizing the tools that you have, and where are the tools?
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. And anybody that's kind of feeling overwhelmed or they don't know where to start, and it's awkward, right? As a culture, we don't really talk about money. We talk about payments or the fancy cars or how to spend it, but there's a lot of shame and guilt associated with debt, and you don't know what to do. And a lot of that comes from what we call our money classrooms. And so it's really how we were raised, and more is caught than taught, right? So we take all that money behavior, like anything else, into our adulthood, and we're supposed to be able to handle our money and know what to do. I didn't know any of this until I was in my 40s, right? When I went through it in 2008 and went, oh, because that was another debt story. So I think it's important for anybody watching, like, this is about giving yourself grace, and this is about reaching out and having a conversation with you. I want to share my contact information too, because my text information is on there. Text me for just a complimentary phone call. We can talk confidentially. I've heard it all. There's nothing you can tell me. Believe me, $200,000 worth of debt. I mean,
Right.
I'm proud of that now, right?
You are the poster child for that.
Because
so.
it's like people feel we might be broke temporarily, but we're not poor. There's so much hope ahead. There's so much. If you have income coming in and you have a plan, there is a hope to have the American dream of a home and to be able to have an affordable mortgage and work with wonderful people like the two of you. There really is. It's just a matter of having the tools, like you said, and the resources.
Exactly.
So I encourage anybody to reach out at any time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm probably a little bit more in depth with our finances than you guys are initially.
Yeah, sure.
And I'll, you know, if somebody's kind of maybe not quite there, like I really truly give some tips on what I think they need to do, just based on my you know,
Your Dave
professional,
Ramsey and your
my professional opinion.
Right.
You know, knowing a little bit about credit reports, not that I'm a credit expert, however,
Right.
I do, you know, have a little insight into how things can help. So I, you know, like one of the first things I have to do is pull credit. If I pull credit and I see some kind of glaring things, I will, in a very nice way, you know, say, you know, we got to work on this.
Right.
And you know, my customers, my borrowers, they come to me and they ask me questions, and that's the whole point. Is I want them to succeed. I
Yes.
don't want them to fail. That would make me feel horrible, you know. So I welcome any kind of questions at any time from my customers on what they should do next, or how I feel about this maneuver that they're doing, or whatnot. You know, and even if they don't end up buying a home for me, I'm still here for them. Like, I still
Right.
don't want anybody to fail.
No,
Right, we're still a resource for gathering any of the information that's needed to be able to make these decisions. Because, I mean, and we talk about this a lot. Where else are you going to get it? So part of the reason that we started doing this, quite honestly, is, you know, you always hear, well, you know, people should teach it, they should learn it in school, or they should just know this, or their parents should teach this, or, well, why don't they just know? They just should know. So what we decided is, well, instead of everything being somebody should teach them, somebody should do this.
They should have had the resource.
They should have had the resource. Instead of, we're like, okay, there is no somebody, there's just us. So we're going to be somebody. So the whole purpose of our Adulting 101 series is to be able to bring in every month a subject matter expert about a part of being an adult that is not generally taught, you know.
Smart,
and I
very
learned
smart.
that quite honestly too from my own. I have adult children, so a lot of our topics come from questions that they've asked me. Mom, how do you know which insurance? You know, high deductible, low deductible. What's the right way? You know, how should I look at this? How does this whole home buying stuff work? You know, and I mean, so much of it, property taxes.
Oh,
You know, nobody really knows until we did last month.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
So it's just been really interesting when I've, you know, because they take like a class in high school, like a fiscal literacy-ish class, and then I'll be like, so what did you learn? Well, we spent 3 months learning how to balance a checkbook. Well, okay, first of all, who balances a checkbook by hand anymore,
Exactly, right.
My app
Yeah.
and my phone does that for me. I just look at it and make sure everything's right. But they're better at the math than I am longhand. So, so identifying that there are a lot of people that really want to know more. They just don't have access to the resources.
And they don't know what they don't know.
No, right.
You know, that's the other part of it is you just don't know. And so we're trying to bring some light to some of these topics that you wouldn't even know is out there. You know, we do because we're doing it.
We're in the industry.
Right.
But I learned so much every single time. I've learned a lot here tonight just from having you here. And
Sure.
I mean, we've met before and I'm familiar, but I learned so much more here. Last month when we had Scott Shipman here, you know, lots of great information about property taxes and how are they factored and what can you do about that and what do they mean. So, I mean, I'm 57. I'm learning this adulting stuff too.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
There
We're
is
all in it
no.
together.
Yeah. There is no. I'm sorry.
There's no cap.
Right.
No, that's right. Exactly.
I hate to break the news to you. There is no one point where somebody just like gives you a medal and says, "Okay, now you're
You've
done. You are
arrived."
officially an adult."
I know.
Because we're always learning and we're always figuring it out and always making mistakes and learning from our mistakes. But being able to bring wonderful people with perspectives like you and the information that you have to clients and potential viewers, just people who are curious and just want to know more, just means so much to us.
I want to ask a question now.
Sure.
So we've talked a little bit, you know, last time we had Scott Shipman. Now we're talking about budgets. But so the 25% versus the 35%.
Yeah.
Can you give a little bit more background on what goes into both of those?
Good question. So I would say when somebody's talking to you directly about how do I qualify and what can I afford, I would say let's look at just the loan payment being 25%.
And when you say the loan payment,
yeah,
that is principal and interest?
that's principal and interest.
Not taxes.
That's
Not
correct.
taxes and insurance.
That's right. So taxes
Or HOA. if
So
it's in
part of the category for housing would be the loan payment or your mortgage. Okay, so not taxes, not insurance, is 25%.
Okay.
And then taxes would be part of that percent of the, and then HOA dues, and then home repairs. All right, and
Right.
that total category should be 35%. That way we're not like house poor. Okay.
Right.
Now the fine line is, and I get this asked a lot, home repairs. Well, there's going to Home Depot to buy filters and a tank for
Right.
the gas grill, and then there's home repairs like we need new flooring,
Yes.
right? So home repairs in that equation need to be more like the kind of the everyday, we need flowers for the yard
Maintenance.
and the maintenance stuff. Thank
Yes.
you. Yes. The bigger things are what we would cash flow. So if you know you're going to need flooring, for example, that's when the sinking fund would come in and we kind of set that aside. So that would be over and above the 35%, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect
yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Good question.
And I wanted to bring this up just because we were talking about maximums, right? And,
Yes.
and really maxing out like what we're qualified for.
Right. Like getting a credit card with a limit of $10,000 and saying, "Oh, I can go spend $10,000 today." You know, that's just not.
That's not what I want to do.
Right.
Right.
So for a conventional loan, we have Fannie and Freddie, and they're now, they did have a little leeway with where they capped your debt to income ratio, your back end debt to income ratio, which in the previous one I described as everything, all your liabilities plus everything house related.
Okay.
So that was, they were capping it probably about like 45. They have made almost a hard cap this starting June 1st at 43. Okay. That's much more than say a 35%.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Dave and Fannie Freddie are not necessarily aligned. However, I actually think Dave is more on the money. You don't want to max out your budget.
No,
Right.
that's right. Exactly. Because what happens? What happens if you lose a job? Or what happens if income goes down?
What happens
Or
if there's a
happens
pandemic?
Pandemic, exactly. What happens if gas continues to go up?
Right.
What happens if taxes go through the roof? I mean, there are so many variables that we want to control the controllables. And that's why it's so much about becoming debt-free, where we don't owe anybody. As scripture says, the borrower is slave to the lender. And so we get caught in this kind of rat race. And so you're right, Dave is right on the money, where it's about just being very conservative versus just, just because they'll lend it to you doesn't mean you
Right.
need to spend it. Yeah,
And
it's a very
so-
good point.
The book, Next Door, Millionaire Next Door.
Yes. Are you thinking of the one that was out by Ramsey or Millionaire Next Door?
Well, either one.
So every day. Yeah, I love it. You are very
One of those
well.
books.
I love it. You're very well read. So Millionaire Next Door came out years ago, and then Everyday Millionaires was written by Chris Hogan, and that's the study of over 10,000. They studied 10,167 millionaires. It is
Wow.
a fascinating read. I've read it twice. I love this book.
Yeah.
And so you had a question about it.
Well, give us a little insight into the Everyday Millionaire or the Millionaire Next Door. Like, what
Yeah.
were some of these literally were
big
done on
takeaways?
statistics. Yeah.
Yes,
Like, so
yeah.
you have a very large population that was surveyed, and there are trends that we can follow with this.
That's exactly right.
And so,
Yeah.
can you give us a little insight into what some of those trends were?
Yes. So great question. So first of all, Everyday Millionaires was again a study that an independent research company researched over 10,000 millionaires, and they did this a couple years ago, and it was compiled by Chris Hogan, and he's written a very kind of friendly book, and I believe it's $10 on sale right now at Ramsey.com. So great book, great read. And some of the things to answer your question. So first of all, when they just asked you, okay, tell us what you did. Well, I don't know the percentages. They all had a budget. They all told their money where to go. You don't land at millionaire status by accident.
Right.
Right. Now there's a lot of common myths like, well, they're a millionaire. They were born into a rich West County family, right? Or they have a silver spoon in their mouth, or grandpa had a lot of money and left it. That's not the case. With most of these millionaires, I say at least 70% of them, but again, I will not quote percentages because I don't know them for fact. Very few actually inherited the money. These are people that were on purpose put money away, right? They didn't use debt as a tool. So, and let me qualify by saying that the way that they're qualifying or defining millionaires is by their net worth being a million. So they owe like billion
Right.
in assets, right?
Right,
So they don't
in
owe
assets
anything.
now.
So it's what they own minus what
Assets
they
minus
owe.
liabilities.
Right, exactly.
The net is then $1 million.
Yes, and statistically, most of this is combined of their 401k and their home. That's how they got to millionaire status. Okay, so you look at retirement savings
Right.
and that kind of thing. So they all invested over time on purpose. That was what a lot of them had to say. They all had a budget. None of them used airplane miles or points from credit cards
Right.
or anything like that to build their wealth. They didn't do it,
Right.
right? They didn't borrow their way to debt, to having this high income.
Right.
Okay. So those are some of the things. The other thing, so get this. What do you think are the top 3 professions that are of millionaires? What would you say? Doctors, lawyers? What would you say?
No,
Right now in
it
my
was-
world, it would be plumbers. If
Yeah.
you're a plumber or an electrician, you're probably a millionaire.
One, a teacher.
Yeah. So one's a teacher.
Oh,
right.
wow.
So engineers.
Yes. Now engineers make
I
sense
did remember that one. Engineers.
Yeah, engineers, teachers, and accountants. So here's what. So they actually go into some depth with this. So you think about it. All those people are kind of system oriented,
Yeah.
right? You give an engineer a spreadsheet, you give them a system, you give them a plan. They're very methodical, right? Accountants, same thing. That makes sense, right?
Right.
They're logical and they know where money goes and they understand taxes, right? Right? And then teachers. So teachers, I have a lot of teacher clients. Why? They love this. They love like a system. They have
Yeah.
a system to teach. They have a curriculum. You tell a teacher what to do and they're going to do it.
Right.
One of my very first clients, she's paid off $45,000. She works within Rockwood School District. She's paid off $45,000 in credit card debt, and she is so excited because she's just this close to having all her credit card debt gone.
Oh, wow.
And she, because of this retirement savings that's kind of forced within the
Right.
within
Yeah,
the teaching
within the
community,
teaching.
her retirement is beautiful.
Yeah.
And she's young, so she's going to get herself. And she just was like, "Okay, show me what to do." There was no
Right.
resistance, right? So I find that fascinating. So there are people that had a system around their money. I think that's really interesting. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of them. So there's for the viewers out there, I would highly recommend listening to it's now called The Ramsey Show. So
Okay.
Dave is kind of taking a back seat and letting some of his other personalities take over the show.
Sure.
So on The Ramsey Show,
You might
they
want to retire someday.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. They have it's Millionaire Hour, and so they'll have everyday millionaires call in and interview them.
Oh, nice.
And they'll ask them a series of questions. And believe it or not, like they'll say, "How educated are you?" Some of them didn't necessarily go to college. What was your GPA in high school? Some of them laugh and say, "Oh, I was a 4.0," and others will say,
What's a GPA?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Other times they'll say, let me see. Do you give? And almost all of them give. They're big donors, that kind of
Right.
thing, which makes sense. I remember one day, a young man called in and he made maybe $60,000, and he said, my highest level of income is $60,000, but again, he invested over time.
Right.
What's another secret? I brown bag my lunch. I don't
Yeah.
care about eating out all the time.
Right.
Eating out is wonderful. I love a good meal, but
Yeah.
it does add up, right? So for people that you just kind of have a budget for it, again,
Right.
it's fun, but it doesn't need to be all the time.
I'm going to give you an example.
Okay.
So my daughter, who is new at college, basically, and I have her on an allowance because
Right.
she did some really good things. She got to this really good school.
Yeah.
Good.
She did amazing
I'm giving
things.
her not a very large allowance, but I'm giving her a small allowance, and I still see her checkbook or
Yeah.
what's going on in her bank account. And she came to me one month and she's like, "Mom, I need some extra money. I need to do this and this," and I go to her checkbook and I just kind of look just to
Yeah.
make sure. I'm like, you have an allowance. You're supposed to be on a budget.
Right.
And then I see $70 worth of Starbucks.
Oh, no.
And I
Right.
am like, are you kidding me? And you're
Exactly.
asking me for extra money
Right.
Because you can buy coffee.
so you can buy coffee? I don't buy
Good for
that
you.
much in
Exactly.
coffee. Like,
Exactly.
Well, buy
Right.
Starbucks beans and brew coffee.
That's right.
right.
I
So,
mean, I
yeah.
love Starbucks coffee too. It's really strong, but
oh, and she,
It's
yes, exactly. She
expensive.
has,
Yeah.
a coffee pot, so she could do that. She's
Yeah.
just choosing not to. So, but that's the point: is you have to make some sacrifices.
Yes,
You have
right.
to assign a name to every dollar.
Right.
So
Right.
Yeah.
if you're, go out and have your coffee, but it has to fit your budget.
Exactly. That's exactly right. That's very
know?
true. And yeah. And again, that app, Every Dollar is a wonderful app. There's Every Dollar, which is free on the App Store, and you can just kind of, the viewers can play around with it and just kind of create a budget. And again, if they want my help, have them reach out. And then Every Dollar Plus connects to your bank account. So then when the debit card goes through, the transactions show up and you literally just drag and drop. So like, Starbucks could have a line item and then you drag and drop it
Way
over there.
over there.
Exactly.
They have one.
Down there. but it's really great to track your spending. So
Right.
it's really a game changer. It's a very easy app. And within the Ramsey Plus is like the umbrella, and then within that is this budgeting app, and then within that are all these videos on how to budget and that kind of thing. It's really great. So yeah.
Well, and I think it's important to think of it less as you have to sacrifice and more as you have to take responsibility for a choice.
Yes, exactly. Telling your money where to go.
Right.
Right.
You just make a choice. I love to eat out too.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to do it, I'm going to eat something that I really, really enjoy and that it's really an experience to do it. It's going to really be worth it. If I'm going to go, I'm not going to drive through McDonald's or drive through, if I'm going to do it, I'm going out for oysters.
There you go. There you go.
Sort of
it's an experience.
It is.
Right.
It's an experience.
You're probably not going to make that at home.
So I don't shuck oysters.
No.
Haven't figured that one out. But being able to consciously make the choice, and then that also lets me really experience the pleasure of doing it.
Yeah.
Then I can just immerse. Then I'm not just shoving food in my face because it's convenient. I'm taking the time to say, this is a gift I've given myself, and I'm going to really enjoy something that I like, and I'm going to drink a nice glass of wine and listen to some music and have some oysters.
It's so fun. Yeah. And have the whole experience.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I can barbecue burgers at home tomorrow.
Just a give and take.
That's right.
It is.
Exactly.
If you give it over here, it has to come from somewhere else. Where's it going to come from?
Yeah.
There's
that's true.
only so many dollars.
And it's not coming
in a
from
month.
mom saying you need
And
more.
it's not coming from us.
No,
that
that's
I
right.
need more
know,
allowance in college.
That's right. I may need tips from you. I have a freshman next year. I need some tips from you. Even the money
I just
coach.
told her no.
Yeah, right. Like, no.
I was like, you're going to have to figure that. Go give some blood, baby.
Exactly. That's right. Yeah.
And my daughter's over there saying, I hear something about allowance? What allowance? Can I have an allowance? At 31, married with 2 kids.
I love it. Right. Yeah.
But I mean, the whole reason why we're even talking about budgets, we're talking about food, we're talking about, the envelope system and all this stuff and the baby steps, is to get our homeowners into a house and get it so that they're not stressed, it's not a burden, and getting them on that road to recovery, really, because the number one wealth builder for the middle class is
home ownership.
That's right.
And so we want you to get there, but we don't want you to
not be all stressed out.
So here's the deal. Buying a house is stressful. I'm not going to lie to you. The process, right? And doing
fun.
something different.
Yeah, Joanne's like, sign me up.
Yeah. You just want to buy a bunch of them. But it is because it's going to be something outside of your comfort zone. There's going to be things about it that you don't know and you're not prepared for. And in our market right now, it's very, very stressful. You may be, you can't get emotionally attached to a house. You may be writing a bunch of, I may be writing a bunch of different offers for you until we find one and get accepted. So there are enough other stressors in that scenario of working with the lender and providing all of the documentation you need and working with the title company and finding the right house. You don't need your budget and the financial part of your world to also be a stressor while you're dealing with that, because stress is going to happen in all of our lives, right?
Right.
It's going to be there whether you can't have a stress-free life. It's going to pop up. But if you can reduce the stress by planning in these other areas of your financial area and take control of, exactly to your point, take control of the controllable, and then when the uncontrollable happens, you have more of that energy reserve to be able to address it.
That's right. Yeah. One of the things that Dave says, speaking of adulting, he'll say an adult devises a plan and follows it. A child does what feels good. So when we are an adult and we want to buy a home, which is an adult transaction, right? Let's make sure we can really afford it and do it the right way. Yeah.
Absolutely.
What does that process look like, and what could the cost potentially look like as well?
Oh, great. Thank you. Where do I look? there?
Just wherever.
Wherever. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if there was a specific.
So there's your camera.
Oh, thank you. Oh, crack up. Hello.
So now we Meredith,
Hello.
camera,
Right, I know. Exactly.
Oh,
that's
that
right.
one is her? Oh, okay. So right now that one.
So great question. So the first thing is truly a complimentary phone call. So the number on the screen, just actually I'll send you a link to set up a call, and we'll just kind of talk about what's going on. And then it's typically, so a really good solid cash flow plan takes about 3 to 6 months. So most of my customers are with me for about 6 months. And my fee truly varies based on kind of what's going on. So I would just welcome a phone call and we can talk about that, because I have kind of a sliding scale based on income. And what the process looks like is it would be very easy for me and you, the client, would just to create a cash flow plan or a budget. But this, I do a lot more than that. We do a deep dive into behavior. So we look at money habits. We look at what's working, what's not. We look at, again, setting up the cash flow plan, but why do we do this, right? You know, we want to have a vision. So we look at a vision, and we look at the money classrooms, and we talk about what it was like growing up in the space where you were, and how that's kind of carrying forward. So in addition to looking at the budget and developing a budget, we also look again at the behaviors, because again, this is 80% behavior and 20% knowledge. And my goal is to see you win with money. So I want to have us look at our behaviors that'll lead to winning with money. So that's what it looks like. And again, the first step is truly a phone call, and coaching may be for you or may not, but I would love to chat.
Well, and just because you set a budget, like you said earlier, just because you set a budget 1 month doesn't mean
Right.
the next month it's going to be the same. And it takes some time to actually get into the rhythm
Yes.
of the budget, because, you know, let's face it, you know, we'll put a name to every dollar the first month, but it's really hard. We'll get into those old behaviors where
Right.
we're like, oh, I got to get a Starbucks.
Right.
That's right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ramsey's research actually shows it does take 3 months to develop a budget. So that's why the minimum working with me is 3 months. And, you know, usually 3 to 6 months. I have some customers I've had over a year, because we just, you know, they want that accountability. And especially it's ideal for married couples, because it can get kind of sticky, right?
Gotcha.
And so I just provide a lot of kind of mediation, if you will, between as they navigate that to get themselves where they want to go. So.
And for all of you that signed up and all of you that have expressed interest, we'll be sending out and sharing Meredith's contact information with you as well, so that you'll have a real easy way to just like click a button and be able to schedule some time or be able to get in touch with her.
Thank you. That's great. What else?
So the question is, does student loan count towards the debt to income ratio? I'm going to answer it on my end. Yes, it does. We will take, even though currently student loans are deferred and it shows a 0 monthly payment right now, we still have to factor in that there will be eventually a payment. And so we factor in 1% of the balance. And so, you know, if you have,
Right.
you know, $1,000, it's $10 a month, right? So that's how we look at it for our debt to income ratio. And again, our max for a conventional is 43%. FHA is a little bit more lenient. However, we don't want to go that high, but we do have to factor that into our debt to income ratio. And so there was a second part of that question.
The person was just wondering if they should focus on saving for paying off their student loans first, or saving for a down payment.
So what should you be focusing on first? Paying off the student loans
Finish your
or
baby
saving
steps.
from
Good, very good question. So I would say, in order of paying off the debt first, I would take the smallest balance to the largest balance of all debt, including your cars or a car, and then put the student loans below that in terms of priority. And then every scenario is different. So you could potentially, you know, it's really hard to answer in general. In a perfect world, all of the debt is gone, right? And so, but without knowing how much it is, but I would say put the student loans, what we do is we put those at the very bottom, and we focus on paying off the credit cards and the cars first.
And generally, student loans have a lower interest rate.
Yes.
And so,
Right.
you know, you really, there's one thing called the debt snowball, but there's another thing called a debt avalanche.
Yeah.
And some people choose to go with the debt avalanche. Some behaviors, you got to know yourself if you're capable, because you don't want to break, you don't want to break your back doing this either. You want to create little rewards by paying your credit cards off, the little balances first,
Exactly.
to have that little reward to keep you going.
Right.
Sometimes the debt avalanche, it's a long haul, and people will give up. And so you don't want to give up.
Right.
But
That's right.
Generally, the student loans have a lower interest rate, and so paying off the credit cards or paying off, other things,
The more expensive
things will actually benefit the consumer in the long run, because then they're not, dividing it into interest payments, which doesn't help them. It's,
That's right. And there's actually a website called Splash, like watersplashfinancial.com, and people can refinance their student loans. So some people have
Really?
4, 5, 6 student loans.
Yeah.
I've never personally dealt with them, but you can sometimes restructure that into, a little bit better.
Right.
And so that can help what you're talking about as well.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Excellent. We have another one. Somebody was just curious, Meredith, if you have a success story from somebody that you maybe want to share.
Oh, yes. Let's see. Where do I start? Gosh. Yeah. I have a client. Let's see. We started working together 4 months ago, and they've paid off $60,000 of, no, I'm sorry. They've paid off $75,000 in 3 months. They actually have high income, but they just got on the same page. They were kind of running in different directions, very happily married, busy family. And they're like, nope, we want to get through this. And so they have paid off a ton of debt.
Wow.
So I think that would be one. Another one paid off. She has $15,000 in student loans, and she's paid off $6,000 of that in just 6 weeks.
And I'm going to interject there too.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not just paying off the actual debt, but selling something.
Right. Oh my gosh, such a
So
good. Yeah. Right.
in my example, one of the ways I got one of the big debts off was I sold a vehicle. I was like, I could afford the monthly payments. They fit my budget. I was stressed, but I couldn't afford the car itself, the van itself.
Wow.
So
right.
we sold the van, and that was, I think, $22,000, and we got like a $5,000 car.
Oh my gosh, great. That's huge.
Yeah, instant windfall,
my gosh.
right?
Right. You don't have that monthly thing all the time, right? Yeah.
Right.
And what's really neat, and when people hear this and they think, oh, well, I couldn't do that, you actually can. The key again is the budget. The key again is the coaching to say, okay, I need to get on a cash flow plan. What does that look like? Because most of my customers find a couple, they find extra money. When you do a budget, I'm sure you found this too.
Right.
When you do a budget, you find extra money in there that you didn't really know is there, and that's the money that we can put towards the debt.
One thing that I'm starting to get a little concerned about is the amount of subscriptions companies are trying to get us signed up for.
Yes.
And those subscriptions roll month to month, and we forget about them.
That's right.
And so
And they know that.
and
why
they
they
know
do
that
it.
exactly.
Right.
And they're so finding money can often be finding a
Going through your
forgotten
app
about
store in your phone.
Yeah.
forgotten about
exactly.
subscription and being like, what is this?
That's
Why am I paying
$50
this?
a month. That's
Right.
right. Yeah. Another success story I would love to talk about is a customer we've been working together for over a year. They were this close to bankruptcy. She's self-employed and he's in construction. And with COVID,
both volatile.
their income, right? And she owns a dance studio, and they're adorable. And she called me in tears, like, I don't know what we're gonna do, and I know Dave Ramsey and whatever. They have paid off $100,000.
Wow.
Yep, they still have a ways to go.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about their story is that, and for anybody that has creditors calling them, right? So a lot of debt is getting turned over to creditors sooner, especially medical debt. Medical, the healthcare industry doesn't have the staffing anymore to manage the bills, so
Right.
they're just turning them over to creditors. The good thing about creditors is you can settle with them, right? So this particular young lady called and she was able to settle. She had a $16,000 credit card bill with creditors, and she was able to settle it for $7,000.
Wow.
So all of a sudden, that's
Yeah,
she just,
right.
I mean, she was thrilled. So
Yeah.
that's another thing that I do with my clients is if they have a lot of creditors calling is scary, right?
Yeah.
What do I say to them? I don't want to promise. What do I do? So I give them the scripts and the tools to do that. And so that's another success story. They're doing all the work. It's not me. I want to make sure, I want to give God the glory, and I want to give them I'm the guide, right?
Right.
Because I've been there, I can guide them through it, but they're truly the ones doing the work. So, yeah.
All right, we just have one more question, which will probably lead us well into kind of signing off here. But if somebody is 6 months to 1 year away from purchasing a house, what should they do now to prepare?
Oh, good question.
Well, I mean, either one of us could take
Yes.
this. So if you're 6 months to a year away from getting a house, the first thing I would do is know what your credit looks like. See, I would pull a free credit report. Look to see if there's any lines on there that are misreported or fraudulent.
Because it does happen.
It happens a lot.
Yeah.
And right now, because
A lot
of
of
COVID,
inaccuracies.
Right.
you know, there are the bureaus, the Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, they're all allowing at least one report to get pulled for free each week.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Normally it's once a year per bureau. So this is a perfect time to really get that free credit report. Look to see if everything's accurate on there. And look to see, you know, like again, maybe you don't know something's on there, or maybe you're gonna attack some of this.
Right.
And get it off of your credit before you go to make the pre-approval. So knowing what your financial health looks like, saving for a down payment. I always will say, like, I am a Dave Ramsey person. However, I am also, you know, realistically, not everybody can have it. Or
It doesn't work.
it doesn't quite work.
Not
for
everybody
their
is
situation.
ready or
right. So I do suggest at least having 10% of the purchase price saved. That
Yeah,
at least
there you
will
go.
cover your down payment
Right,
and your
and
closing
closing
costs.
costs.
You don't necessarily have to rely on down payment assistance, which most
Right.
people can't get.
Right. or if you can, if you need down payment assistance, you can't get a house. It's
Yeah.
just so competitive right now that somebody with a
those
low down
offers
payment or
are not
they
getting
are not
accepted.
getting accepted because there are other better offers for sellers to look at.
So making sure your financial health is ready to go when you are ready to start looking.
Okay.
So that's what I would suggest.
Right. Now, I would also advise, just based on experiences from some of my clients and previous clients, is when you get that report and you see a bunch of stuff on it, and maybe there's like an old doctor's bill from 5 years ago that's still on there, and your first instinct is, oh, I'll just pay it and it'll go away. Just stop. So first, talk to a lender, so that to get the advice as to, you have the information. Before you jump in about what to do about it, consult an expert, because I have had clients who, in exactly that situation, oh my God, I didn't even know that doctor's bill was out there. It's only $100. It was from years ago. You know, I'm just going to pay it off, and then it's done, right? And because they did
I agree with that. Because some of these line items aren't getting reported anymore, and they will fall off.
Yes.
If you pay it, it will
brings it all forward.
all the way to the top again.
So maybe your credit score was whatever, 750, and you pay that $100 bill, and suddenly it drops to 680 or what, you know, only because you paid it, because it took that debt experience and brought it
back
forward.
I see.
Because whatever the most recent negative impact experience has the biggest weight, right? And over time, it kind of it reduces in importance or in the scoring matrix.
Okay.
So if you've got one that's like way down here and it's about to fall off the edge and not be there anymore, and you pay it, it brings it all right back here. So being able to don't just like dive into it and start trying to willy-nilly figure out what to do with it.
True.
Take some partnership and make the right decisions for your goals. You know, I'm also not saying, you know, don't pay your bills. Pay your bills.
Right. Yeah.
But things do. Something may slip by and you didn't get the bill in the mail and you didn't know, or whatever. Things happen sometimes. Make the best decision for your goals with the information you have, but take partners.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree.
And then, another thing too is, you know, try to pay down any kind of debts 30% or lower than your high balance. The more extended you are, generally, the more impact that is to your credit score.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the more extended you are, the less you have available in available credit in purchasing a home. It gives the impression to a lender, somebody you're going to want a whole bunch of money from, that you have a tendency to overextend yourself and extend yourself way out. That puts you in a riskier category. So if you can get a mortgage, it's going to be more expensive, right? You're not going to be able to get the best rates and the best package.
And it's
that
a
way
little
either.
counterintuitive because say you have one card that has a limit of $30,000, but then you also, in one example, in the other example, you have 3 cards, each $10,000, right? So, like on this one, you have the same balance as, like a 30,000. Say you're putting, you have, I don't know, I'm trying to like $10,000
Right.
on this
Out of
one.
the 30.
Right. Over here, though, your $10,000, if you have it closer to the upper
Right,
limit
if you've
on
got-
there, that hurts it even more.
Yeah,
Because it's a percentage thing, not a dollars thing.
right.
Yeah. So it's like you want to try and keep your
Keep your percentages low.
30% or lower of the high balance.
Right.
And I'd also just interject there, save. Like if they're 6 months out, just save. Can't hurt to save.
Yeah.
Just save your money, because you're gonna want stuff when you get it in the house. And
You will, and
just save the money.
one of the
Right.
other things that the pandemic experience has created is that a lot of people have spent the last year not being able to take vacations, not being able to eat out, so they've been able to save money. We are seeing, I'm seeing more clients who now, they couldn't have the big wedding, so they had a pandemic wedding like I did, standing in a park, right, with 5 people. Cool, but we're married.
Right.
So instead of that big expenditure, they either save the money, or a lot of people are also reinvesting it back into their home. So now is when
Yes.
they're putting on a bigger deck, or they're updating it. But those habits that we've learned during the pandemic to not be out everywhere
No.
and spend all of our money
No.
everywhere, I think people can really take advantage of and just continue that process
In a more conscious way.
Exactly.
and save and put that for a house. But if you think you're 6 months to a year out from buying a house, step number 1 is to talk to professionals so that you can identify exactly where you're at. And then once you know where you're at, then you already know where you want to go, and then we can devise all the steps along the way, right?
Yeah.
However long it takes.
Absolutely. So, anyways, this has been a fabulous talk.
Thank you.
Yes.
I was just gonna say thank you for having me this evening. Very fun. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I
Really
think
loved it.
this is such critical information, and it is.
It's really the base of
It
getting
is.
a home.
Right.
So,
Right. And yeah.
we
Thank
probably
you very
should have
much.
even had you on first, but
Right.
at the same time,
That's right.
we're glad that we've
Yeah.
done
Yeah.
it tonight. So,
That's right. It's
Because we
great.
have the system fine-tuned now, right?
Yeah.
If it was the first night, we were still figuring everything out.
That's right.
So this is a much better arrangement. But yeah, thank you so much for
Thank
hanging
you.
in there with us
Oh,
and
absolutely.
for coming on this journey with us. And I know that you're always available for questions. I absolutely recommend people follow Meredith on Facebook. She delivers a lot of great tips that are quick, simple, little things that you can do to help positively impact your
and
cash flow.
you are also in our Facebook
Yes,
Adulting
in
101
Adult-
group.
yes, I
So
sure
if
am. That's
there's
right.
any kind of questions, you can, post your questions in there or reach out to Meredith as well in our Adulting 101 Facebook group.
That's right. And there's a Meredith's Money Matters is my
Yes,
is my
your Facebook
my
page.
Facebook group too.
Facebook
exactly.
group, yeah.
Right. That's fun. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Okay, well, that being said,
Yeah.
we appreciate you joining us, and please join at our next one, which will be at the end of June, and we'll give you more information about that.
Yeah. So please just stick with us, and we've got lots more information coming in the coming months.
Yes.